What is behind so many Black women's commitment to being straight? Is it loyalty? Is it fear? Or is it something much, much deeper? Today's conversation goes beyond some Black women are just straight, get over it. Because yes, some Black women are straight, strictly dickly, and some Black women may not be. Today, I'm diving into the layers of sexuality, identity, and the societal forces that shape our choices, especially when it comes to love and attraction. I'm the ignorant intellectual, the bridge between the hood and the ivory tower. Black brilliance, formal education, not required. Now, before I go any further, this part of the video is dedicated to those of you who can't walk and chew gum at the same time. Those of y'all who on that struggle bus with holding multiple truths at the same time, especially the ones that make you uncomfortable. Yep, the ones that seemingly are in opposition to each other. This part of the video is for them children who was left behind in that No Child Left Behind campaign back in the day. Right now, I'm talking to those of you who are already gearing up to ascend onto my comment section like a Russian mighty wind, talking about some not all Black women, or worse, those of you who are committed to advocating for Lucifer. Fun fact, the devil does not need any advocates. Those of you who somehow mangle the fuck out of what people be saying in videos and somehow contort it into the most bullshit of all bullshits. To you, I say, the Black women that I'm talking to in this video are those to whom this conversation applies. Meaning, those to whom this information is relevant. We do not need you to be in these comments talking about not all Black women. I'm clear. Some of you are not only straight, some of you have a cape with an S on the back because you are super straight. You are the bastions of heterosexuality. I'm not recruiting. Like Atlanta, we are full. I'm not trying to force queerness on you. Scroll on by. But for the rest of us who like to think and have random conversations about random things, whether they apply or not, hello. So let's have a conversation about the cultural, religious, and personal reasons behind this loyalty to straightness amongst some straight Black women, and how queerness can teach us all a thing or two about living authentically. Now, how did I get into this? Somebody that's not even straight, somebody that's queer as fuck, and somebody that don't even identify as a cisgender Black woman, somebody who identifies as non-binary, agender. How am I qualified to speak on Black women? Well, truth be told, I might not be qualified. What brings me to speak on this is first-hand experience. First-hand experience with the curiosity, the intrigue of straight Black women. The flirting, the suppressed or not so suppressed desire. Because one thing I know is that straight identified Black women love them some non-binary people. And when I say love, I mean romantically, sexually, not platonically, what you say you admire us. Y'all love us. So that is what has brought me to have this conversation. Y'all love the non-binaries, baby. Now, most of us, straight, gay, tall, short, Black, white, most of us are taught from young that sexuality is simple. Boys like girls, girls like boys, theory. But at some point along the lines, queer people discover that sexuality is complex, experience. So personally, when I discuss sexuality with a straight person, even my straight friends, there's often like a collision of this complex experience with their simple theory. And sometimes all that straight person can come up with is, not everybody is gay. Why can't you accept that? And as the queer person, because my baseline is a complex sexuality, it's clear to me that this straight person is actually having a complex experience that's trying to get some airtime experientially. But we do see every now and then how complex straight people's sexuality really is, even from young. So I used to teach a middle school after school program in Brooklyn. I lived in New York for 10 years, by the way. And I used to teach middle school kids. And one day randomly, I don't remember how it came out, but it did come out, that one of the boys preferred fat girls. Now, when it came out, you would have thought this little boy said he wanted to rob banks professionally when he grew up, the way these kids responded. And I responded by saying, raise your hand if your mama is fat. And as I began to raise my hand, some other kids reluctantly began to raise their hand. And so I said, so what I'm seeing is that a lot of our daddies prefer fat girls. And they thought about it, and it clicked. And we all kind of started chuckling because it's true. And so his face relaxed, because what you're not going to do in my class is normalize fat phobia. But we also began to see that it's not just boys like girls, and girls like boys when you're straight. We like certain types of girls and certain types of boys if we straight. Another way we see the complexities of heterosexuality is that a girl sometimes likes boys who have subtle femininity. And as she ages, she may be attracted to men who have subtle femininity. We all have the female friends who are straight, but the boys or the men that she tends to date, we be like, you sure he not gay? Is he bisexual? She has a type, and her type tends to be men who have subtle femininity. It is what it is. But it's not just flattened that girls like boys and boys like girls. Sometimes women prefer shorter men. My best friend, she about 5'8", tall for a girl. There is nothing a man taller than her can do for her. My brother-in-law, her husband, who she's been married to for 20 years, is my height, short. There's nothing a tall man can do for her. So tall, dark, and handsome, that's not her thing. So it is more than boys like girls and girls like boys when it comes to straight people. Or what about the boy who prefers women with subtle masculinity, who grows up to be the man who is attracted to studs? Somebody out there picked up what I put down. We all know the dudes who love studs. If I was attracted to men, I would be pregnant and married to one of them dudes. There are men out here who love studs. That's how you get dick dykes. It's more than just girls like boys and boys like girls. Heterosexuality is not so simple. Or what about that straight couple who experiments, but they don't talk about it with each other because that's not what straight people do? So what's fascinating to me is that even within these rigid rules of heterosexuality, the complexity still exists. It just hides in plain sight underneath the layers of social conditioning. The complexities of straightness is always there, nudging, pushing, demanding more airtime, but being denied left and right. And as a queer person, when I'm having conversations, I recognize this complexity very easily because as a queer person, sexuality is inherently complex for us. Because we have to fight to feel, to breathe, to be within our sexuality all the time. So it's almost instinctive for me to see sexuality as a complex thing. Although most times all straight people have is, everybody not gay, get over it. I ain't never say everybody was gay. I never said you was gay. I'm just trying to have a complex conversation about sexuality. But because you believe that your sexuality is so simple, all you can give to me is everybody not gay. But your sexuality is mad complex. I believe that straight people would benefit from this liberation practice. To look at your desires, your preferences, your attractions, not as deviations from the norm, but as part and parcel, the bedrock of your sexuality. Messy, beautiful, contradictory, real. Because in the end, sexuality isn't simple for any of us. It's not supposed to be. I got a question for you. Have you ever noticed a spark for something or someone that didn't fit into your idea of normal? What if that spark was trying to tell you something? Part of the issue, I believe, is that we squash sexuality into being just about who we fuck, when really, sexuality is so much more vast than that. It's like this constellation of experiences and feelings and expressions. When we're talking about sexuality, outside of who we fuck, we're talking about stuff like what draws us to other people, not just physically, but emotionally and spiritually, intellectually. Sexuality includes the way we connect and the energy and the sparks between us, even when we have no desire to have sex with that person. The draw is still sexuality. Sexuality is also how we feel about ourselves. It's deeply tied into our self-image, how we see our own desirability or lack of desirability, our confidence, how we embody our gender, our attraction. Sexuality is about the roles we play, dynamics of power, vulnerability, care, relationships. Something we don't often talk about. The roles we play at work also are about sexuality. We've seen coworkers give and take power dynamics and roles and sensuality and sexuality, and no one is having actual sex. But we see how sexuality shows up in lure and allure, and people give and take at work to get what they want or don't want. Sexuality is also about what we find beautiful or compelling. Art, music, the candles we like. Like I like candles that are woodsy candles and like Palo Santo. And I'm not a sweet candle smelling love like person. I like woodsy masculine scents in my candles. It's what we find beautiful. It's the type of music we like at a certain time and what context we like certain music and where we are when we want to listen to certain things and what type of museums we prefer. Do we prefer museums? Like, truth be told, I'm going to sound real uncultured. Musicals, too much singing for me. I know it's called a musical, but no thanks. Back on the topic. Sexuality is also how we express affection. From words, touch. It encompasses how we show love, the popular love languages, which I'm going to come back to later because I have a little bit to say about that. Sexuality is about our fantasies, our imagination. Sexuality lives in our minds. The what ifs, the daydreams, the stories we tell ourselves about desire. Personally, I have had intense daydreams my entire life, as long as I can remember. And I've had an uptick of daydreams, intense daydreams, starting January 1st, 2025. I haven't had daydreams this intense in about 20 years. It has been purely magical, to be honest. It has been amazing. And notice, nothing I've talked about is about the act of sex. One of the biggest things sexuality is something that I'm tapping into just recently. What we allow ourselves to want, which is a big part of this video. Desire. Sexuality is about permission, baby. What we feel free to desire and what we are afraid to admit even to ourselves. Desire is something that's emerging for me, if I'm going to be transparent. I'm developing an unapologetic relationship with desire. To truly allow myself to desire people, places, things, experiences without apology, sensations, to crave a thing or a person freely. So you can see sexuality is not just about who we fuck. It's about how we experience desire, connection, and the embodiment in all of its forms. This video even, I have desired to do this video since last year, but I hesitated. Multiple colliding experiences made me want to do this video. For one, I turned 45 in October last year. And I'm convinced that this age range is a fork in the road age for so much shit. Lot of choice points that last for the rest of our lives at this age. It's fork in the road. Number one, this is the moment people either become them fine ass old people or they fall the fuck off completely forever. It's given retinol, it's given sunscreen, toner, moisturizer, it's given supplements, it's given quality sheets and mattresses, it's given strength training, stretching. This is the moment where those fine ass old people you meet at 60 and 70 begin. Number two, you ever meet those old people who are super cool, super sweet? I mean, they still old and ornery, but they a pleasure to be around. You ever meet those? Then conversely, you meet those old people who are unpleasant as fuck. Well, both of those old people's personalities were solidified right now in this age range. They're mid-40s. This is the moment people's personalities become unpleasant and ornery, or cool and sweet and ornery forever. Number 3, this is also the moment people become sexless temporarily. They've been fucking, they continue to fuck, or they become sexless permanently, forever. You know what I'm talking about. The 75-year-old biddy who ain't got none in 30 years. We have met her. Well, what is 75 minus 30? 45. The math is mathing. I'm telling y'all, 45, this age range is a fork in the road, baby. It's a fork in the road, baby, for a lot of things, I'm realizing. Part of that is being that this is the time of the first major wave of divorces. Married names are disappearing on Facebook. They've been started maybe about 5 years ago. The maiden names are returning, baby. The marital pool is replenishing, gay or straight. Single people my age, fret not. Your bae may be in divorce court. Your bae may be in divorce court. Give it time. Give it time. If your bae has not yet been in therapy, it's a firm no. It's a firm no. Bae may be in divorce court now, but we're not dating baes who have been divorced, who have not also been through therapy. Say it with me, therapy. Been there, done that. Never do it again. And then we got these long-term bouts of singleness. Kind of by choice, kind of not, hard to say. Which means that some of us are single and sexless. And then I also wanted to do this video because I've had conversations with friends who I never thought would concede to being sexless or concede to being single. And some who I never thought would say that they may be single and sexless for the long term. I mean, mind blown. I said, wait, what is going on, friend? And then really, I just be thinking about my experiences with straight Black women and their intrigue and their attraction to gender nonconforming people. And knowing how expansive sexuality is, despite how rigid our world forces it to be. So I posted to Instagram, maybe 2 weeks ago. I posted, "Dear straight women to whom this applies. That thing you feel for masculine queer women is called a tickled fancy, a litty clitty. You are attracted to masculinity, the whole of it, not solely the kind embodied by men. You would be just as fulfilled in a relationship with a masculine non-binary person, or even a masculine woman, as you would a masculine man. Perchance, even more so. I believe that some Black women who identify as straight are straight." Let me repeat that for the not all Black women choir, because I know they're going to sing like a Russian mighty wind any fucking way. I believe that some Black women who identify as straight are indeed straight, strictly dickly. And I believe that some Black women who identify as straight have a more expanded sexuality than straight, but are loyal to straightness. Which got me to thinking, what's at the root of this loyalty? One piece of this that I want to highlight is that these Black women that I'm talking about that have an expanded sexuality beyond straight, they are not seeking femininity. They aren't necessarily seeking a woman. They are 100% undoubtedly attracted to masculinity, just not the kind embodied by men, which is why they are so intrigued by the masculinity embodied by non-binary masculine people, who, yes, are generally assigned female at birth, but who don't identify as women. So I'm not really discussing studs here either, because studs are women. But their loyalty to straightness has them of the mindset that the only masculinity that is viable to them is masculinity embodied by men. So they're only open to dating men, but they're also frustrated with men and their emotional unavailability, patriarchy, the inability to meet them mentally, a lack of reciprocity. So these Black women choose singleness. And they may on occasion fuck a man, but overall, single. Now, this is a time to remind us of what I said at the very beginning of this video. The black women that I'm talking about are those to whom this conversation applies. I'm not recruiting. We are full. I'd also like to offer you one of my favorite group agreements of all times. Use moments of discomfort to inquire deeper. So as I thought about this, 2 questions popped up. What's at the root of this loyalty to straightness? 1. And 2, why do these particular black women choose singleness and straightness instead of a more expansive sexuality and partnership with people who are not men? Sounds easy peasy to me. Then I had to be honest. We live in a whole ass world. Black women live in a world just like everybody else. It centers heterosexuality. And that's not just an identity. It's a deeply ingrained expectation. Anything else can feel like a betrayal to even blackness itself. Then we got faith and religion. Even if you don't go to church, but you come from blackness, there's probably a faith tradition somewhere around you. Even if you don't go to church. I can't go too deep into my family without faith and religion coming up. And I'm not straight. The church plays a significant role in our lives. So even black straight women who are frustrated by cis men might feel that exploring queerness would mean disconnecting from family, disconnecting from that faith tradition, which may mean disconnected from family. Then we have a loyalty to black men. Black women sometimes feel a deep sense of responsibility and loyalty to black men. And that can be rooted in that shared struggle against racism and a history of being each other's primary support. That's straight up the truth. And so to explore queerness might feel like abandoning black men, especially in a world that already devalues and demonizes black men. And most of us not ready to deep dive into the unknown. Queerness might feel like foreign, overwhelming, or even dangerous. The media does not help by sensationalizing queer experiences, although 99% of the time, being queer is just a very regular, everyday experience, child. It is not the media sensation shit that they put on TV. It's very regular. I'm not going to say boring because life is lit, but the stuff they have straight people thinking our lives look like, child. But straight people might think that it is foreign, overwhelming, or dangerous. Then you got the internalized homophobia. Even if a black woman feels attraction to somebody outside of men, she might suppress it out of fear of judgment. There is stigma. And just because black straight women are frustrated with cis men doesn't mean that will make them automatically explore queerness. They may still choose singleness because it feels safer, even if they're attracted to non-binary people. It's more familiar to them. Being single is more familiar than queerness. That's stepping into a whole new identity, a whole new way of loving. And one thing that popped up for me as I was thinking about this, because the black women that I am thinking about, they buku evolved in their thinking. I'm not even talking about the black women who be out of pocket ideologically. I'm talking about the ones who legit get it. I'm talking about the ones who intellectually get it. But when it comes to their own sexuality, practically things get super heteronormative. Then I had to remind myself, people are evolved versus evolved in certain areas. So this tension between how expansive they are in theoretically versus how expansive they are when it comes to their personal life. You could be involved in some aspects of your worldview and then hold traditional norms in others. Intellectually, me personally, baby, I'm ride or die for polyamory intellectually. But for me, myself, personally, one boo. In practice, in my bed, in my life, one boo. But out there arguing theoretically, polyamory, baby, I will argue up and down about how you could love more than one person and that your heart is bigger than just one person and compulsory monogamy is something that is thrown upon us as people who live in the United States of America, an industrialized nation. Oh, baby, I will give it to you theoretically. But when it comes to my personal life, me, myself, and I personally, for me, myself, personally, give me one boo. Same thing for the straight black women, probably. Out there in the world, they will ride or die for the gays and the queers, and they understand trans identities, and they will uphold and understand the non-binary people having lovely relationships for them themselves personally. Give them a cis man or give them single. We are evolved versus evolved in certain areas. We are theoretically expansive, but when it comes to our personal lives, we can be very conservative. And that is how things are. There is a tension between being open-minded intellectually, but practically holding on to comfort and safety. And so when it comes to personal belief in relationships, even if somebody is progressive in terms of how they see the world, they might still feel like a deep culturally ingrained pull towards the idea of a traditional heterosexual relationship. Because we also have to realize that stepping outside of one's perceived norm of heterosexuality into a more expansive, queer experience, that's identity shattering. That is a shattering of identity. Some people, especially those who spent a lot of time building their identity within heteronormative frameworks, because that's what the whole world teaches you. Straight black women build an identity inside of heteronormativity. It's not just, oh, I date men. It is the optics of the heteronormative framework. They might feel like exploring beyond that is shaking their core identities and beliefs. It's not that they aren't capable of seeing the world expansively. They just might be unwilling to let go of the comfort and security that comes with that husband, man, and he narrative. And it could be a little cognitive dissonance, where we hold two conflicted ideas at one time. On one hand, these straight black women may intellectually acknowledge and agree with progressive, non-traditional ideas. And on the other hand, they may not align with their personal desire for a cisgender traditional man or relationship model. That can kind of create an inner conflict where they might want to explore new possibilities, but feel more comfortable or secure sticking with what they know. And be clear, we know single more than we know queer. So instead of jumping to queer, they'd rather just stay with a single primarily and get a little nookie when they want a little nookie cookie, So yeah, it could be all that. Now, I do want to say, I'm not talking about I'm tired of just men, I'm going to go get a girlfriend bullshit. That's not what this conversation is about, because that's a little too flat. I don't like that at all. So maybe it's the conditioning, it's the cultural loyalty, it's that identity shattering. All of these things could be why and then I thought about attraction versus identity. Some straight women, although they give the flirtation, they may even have sex with non-binary people, because I have dated straight women. They might find themselves attracted to people who are not cisgender men, but because they identify as straight, they actually, I don't think, see those feelings for people like us as big or as salient as they do see their feelings towards men. It is possible for a straight identifying woman to be attracted to a non-binary or a trans person without even immediately labeling it as queer or gay. Like, I don't know if all of the straight women I've ever dated would consider themselves queer. I think they still consider themselves straight. Although their attraction, they clearly had sex with somebody who wasn't a man. So attraction versus, they didn't change their identity based on their attraction and even on their actions. And then we got attraction versus choice. So I'm gonna tell a story to be fully transparent. One day I was feeling mighty down. I was feeling mighty bad. And when I seen you, I know there's a God. No, I'm just playing. But what movie is that? Anybody? It's a very easy movie. Anyway, one day I was feeling sad, and I think I had like back-to-back rejections from jobs and then people. And regarding the people, God said, what if they were attracted to you, but they didn't choose you? Because in my mind, they didn't choose me because they weren't attracted to me. And I think God was trying to make a distinction for me. What if they were attracted to you? They just didn't choose you. Because we don't always choose based on intense attraction. People choose people for a shit ton of reasons that ain't got nothing to do with attraction. And then there are people who are intensely attracted to people that they never choose. Like, desire is internal. And to me, when you start choosing people, that broaches external and structural. Because that, to choose, is to like be visible. That becomes optics. That becomes perception. That becomes community and cultural and visibility. Choosing broaches the external. So you can desire versus choice. And one could argue, even if you choose somebody, doesn't mean that that is visible, because we choose people and we keep them in secret all the time. Now, I said I come back to these love languages because, baby, straight women, the love languages be snitching on y'all. The love languages be snitching on y'all. So we all know about the 5 love languages: quality time, acts of service, giving gifts, physical touch, and words of affirmation. Now, them love languages fell short because old boy was giving them like we live in vacuums, like we don't live in whole ass worlds around other people. Sir, we do, Mr. Chapman. Where was the racial and gender analysis? Like, it is not happenstance that single black moms' primary love language is acts of service, sir. That's not happenstance. Oh, you want these cookies? Can you please go clean them gutters? Oh, you want some nookie? That roof is leaking. No, sir. I do not want to take a gingerly stroll in the park. That toilet backed up. That driveway needs some pressure washing. Thanks. But one thing about them love languages, baby, they are context and climate specific. Them circumstances and who you are inside of them and who you with inside of them, baby, that's everything. And one thing about me, I'm going to notice a pattern. A pattern hate to see me coming. So something I noticed about the love languages and a good number of these black women I'm talking about, these straight black women that I'm speaking about, the ones who desire masculinity but not masculinity embodied by men. Y'all little love languages in relationships with men generally do not be quality time. Generally do not be quality time. Y'all be looking at these dudes like, sir, why are you here? And then sometimes it don't even be physical touch. Sis, you don't want no man? You want masculinity, but not the kind embodied by a man. You want the kind embodied by a non-binary masculine person. Maybe a stud. Although I'm not at all thinking about studs in this conversation because they're women. Here's the thing. A person's gender impacts how you feel with them doing the same thing you've done with somebody else. A person's gender impacts how you feel doing with them the same thing you've done with somebody else. Now, you still might not need quality time or physical touch, but you probably will. You probably will. But remember what I said about love languages. They are context and climate specific. Them circumstances and who you with inside of them matter. Also, a person's sexuality impacts how they fuck. A queer woman's approach to sexuality is vastly different than a straight woman who likes to have fun every now and then. You could take a leave penetration from a God-given penis and crave digital penetration from a non-binary lover. Somewhat tangentially though, maybe not. We have a name for women who are solely attracted to men, straight. We have a name for men who are attracted to both men and women, bisexual. We also have a name for people who are attracted to trans people, trans attracted. But we don't have a name for a chunk of people walking around on the planet. And that's people who are solely or primarily attracted to non-binary and gender non-conforming people. We don't have a name for them. Some might say pansexual. We don't have a name for people who are primarily and solely attracted to people whose gender exists outside the binary. If you have a name for people, if there are people walking around here who are solely attracted to real men, biological men, cisgender men, and you have people who are solely or only attracted to trans people, what make you think they don't have people who are solely or primarily attracted to non-binary people? It's the audacity for me that people think that they don't have people who are solely or only attracted to people like us. What is that identity? This might contribute to why straight Black women don't see this as a possibility relationship model. Anyway, a conversation that we do not have enough is that many of us desire masculine and feminine energy, but we believe that it must be embodied by a masculine man or a feminine woman, which makes us force ourselves into one space and makes us believe that that space is the only space we could choose from, despite our attractions and our litty clitty telling us otherwise, or potential for attractions, or potential for litty clitties. And you have people like me, who those Black women clearly got litty clitties for and want to put them litty clitties on. But because of socialization and the straight label are loyal to straightness, so much so that they're choosing sexless, singleness, or subpar relationships. Now, because I'm super introspective and I'm working on being vulnerable and more self-aware, I ask myself, is this just my own need to be chosen as a non-binary person? Am I a fucking pick-me? My desire to be chosen could be tied to my identity as a non-binary person, but it's also a valid question to ask if this desire comes from a deeper need for validation. It could also be about wanting to be seen, desired, and accepted, things that people regardless of gender identity want. The truth of the matter is that non-binary people often feel like we exist in between or outside of societal norms, which can make the act of being chosen feel both empowering and complicated. I ask myself, is it just about wanting to be desired, or is there something deeper about how I relate to these particular Black women and my identity? As a non-binary person, because I feel like my attraction goes beyond the binary of man and woman, and that desire doesn't always fit neatly within these norms, so I wondered, am I projecting some of that freedom onto other people, especially if I feel that many Black women are constrained in their exploration of sexuality? So I came up with this. It's possible that both things are at play. I truly see the potential for fulfillment outside of cis heteronormative boxes, outside of just relationships. There is deep fulfillment outside of cis heteronormative boxes. And I am questioning whether Black women could be happier if they explored relationships beyond cisgender men. Because I have experienced the freedom that comes from stepping outside of gendered expectations. There's a freedom in dating beyond cis men, beyond cis people, period, and a desire to be chosen. On the other hand, my desire to be chosen could be intertwined with longing for validation and recognition, something all people experience in different ways. Being non-binary, I may feel my own desire to be chosen is just as valid as the desire to be seen and appreciated in a world that may not always understand me. And that's the most vulnerable thing I can say. While I am open to and attracted to cisgender women across the sexuality spectrum, the truth is that I don't have an ultimate goal of being chosen by a straight woman. I still ask myself these questions. And that's the bottom line. So yes, it is both. I'm navigating both. The urge to see Black straight women free themselves from limiting sexual expectations and choosing singleness over partnership with people who are not cisgender men and my own personal need for acceptance to feel chosen. Both are valid. So I realize Black women often choose singleness over queerness because straightness feels safer, more familiar, and singleness feels safer, more familiar. Queerness is like a chasm of uncertainty for some people, a path that requires not just rethinking attraction, but reimagining identity, relationships, and belonging. And some Black women don't even allow themselves to consider a relationship outside of a cisgender man because it doesn't feel like an option for them. It's not necessarily that they're rejecting the idea, it's just that the possibility never fully registers for them. They know that flirting and even having sex with somebody is a possibility, but a full-ass relationship, doing life with somebody who is not a cis man, that's often outside of their realm of possibility. And sometimes those straight Black women are uncertain about their own feelings. They're uncertain of how to respond because they're torn. They're torn between the comfort of what they know and the curiosity and attraction that they feel towards people like us. If they do feel something for us, but they're deeply committed to a heteronormative narrative, they may not know how to reconcile those feelings. So it leads to avoidance and choosing singleness or a subpar relationship with a cisgender man. What if we all, straight or queer, gave ourselves permission to untangle the theory of our sexuality from the truth of our experience? What could we discover about ourselves if we let go of the rules? Now, this doesn't mean that every Black woman needs to experience queerness. Remember, like Atlanta, we are full. This is about realizing that sexuality, straightness included, is not one-dimensional. It's about freedom, not fitting inside of a box. All right, good people. We have talked about the complexities of straightness, the pressures that straight Black women face, and the lessons that queerness can teach us all. If there is one takeaway from today, it is this: sexuality is not just about who we fuck. So, to whom this applies, what would freedom look like to you? What would it feel like to step outside of the expectations you've been handed and explore the truth and complexities of your own desires? Let me know your thoughts in the comments. What does freedom mean to you when it comes to love and sexuality? Don't forget to like, share, comment, and subscribe for more thought-provoking conversations. And as always, you don't have to agree with me, but at least know why you think what you think. Peace!